that time. And I believe there's no one right answer, but I believe there is a wrong answer. And the wrong answer is us, me, you, standing up in front of the students and yakking at them, kind of like I'm doing right now. Is what we need to do is we need to change the place in which that direct instruction, that lecture, that lower level content comes out. That is the key to making the flipped classroom. Now, how that looks in different classes is actually, I'm going to talk in the virtual session a little bit later. If you want to learn, so I'll talk about what it looks like in math and in science and social studies. So if you want to attend the session a little bit later at, I think it's at 1400, you'll hear me talk about how it looks different in math and science and history and art and whatnot. So I'm going to conclude with just kind of another sort of thought. I really believe there's actually two different versions, if you will, or actually multiple versions of the flipped classroom. And so I'm going to say from flipped class to flipped learning. And so actually in many ways our two books illustrate this very well. So our first book is called Flip Your Classroom, okay? Flip Your Classroom. And our second book is Flipped Learning. All right? This book has been translated into Korean. This one is going to be translated into Korean. And classroom and learning. So I think the way to understand this best is to look at this particular graph or diagram. Is that what I find is that a teacher will spend most of their time doing Flipped Class 101 at first. They'll do a whole year because they're making videos. They're taking a lot of time to make videos, etc., to prepare. But then after a year, you've got this sort of freedom, and you begin to do other things. So for example, we moved to Flipped Mastery. I'll just briefly touch on that in a minute. But the interesting thing is other teachers chose other models besides, as sort of a second version of the Flipped Classroom, besides Flipped Mastery. They did flipped project-based and flipped in pure instruction and flipped with something called Genius Hour. So to just bait you a little bit, I'm going to just briefly talk about flipped mastery. In the flipped mastery model, this is not a synchronous environment. You see in the flipped class 101, a student, so in flipped class 101, I'll go back to that picture. In flipped class 101, the teacher would say all the students would watch on Tuesday night the same video. And on Wednesday, they would do the same activity. But in a flipped mastery model, they don't all watch the same, they don't work always at the same pace. And so what happens is you start with direct instruction, DI, direct instruction, practice, application, and then assessment. But here's the kicker. You know what you don't do well on an assessment, on a test? In a mastery model, the students have to stay there until they learn it. You don't move on. So we expected our students to actually learn the content before they moved on. Now, logistically, this was difficult because different students work at different paces, right? And but we made it work. And so I encourage you to check our books out where we talk about how we made that work. And where do you start? So you're interested in starting the flipped classroom. Where do you start? Here's what I'm going to say. One thing just very simple about the flipped classroom is, you know what? You don't have to flip a class. You don't have to do what Aaron Sands and John Bergman did. You don't have to flip a class. You know what you could flip? One lesson. You don't have to flip a class. You can flip just one simple lesson. Suddenly we have Wi-Fi issues. Okay. You can flip a lesson. You can flip a unit of study, a chapter in your book. You can flip a class. And I'll close with this. You know, when I was younger, if I was looking for coffee, you know how many choices I had typically? So 20 years ago, those of you who are older would remember this. If you were looking for a cup of coffee, you had a choice of one with caffeine and with no caffeine. You had two choices, caffeinated and decaffeinated. Is that the world we live in today? No. We live in this world, don't we? Where you can go to Starbucks and you can go and you can order like 2,000 different versions of coffee. The world has moved to personalization, and we've tried to figure out a way where we can personalize learning for each student. And the flipped classroom will allow you to personalize learning for each kid, because you see, it's going to allow you to get away from the front of the room. Like I am right now. I would be, if I was in a flipped classroom, I would be in and amongst you the whole time. Like you saw in the video with Aaron. It is something about getting us as teachers away from the front of the room that is magic. And then you can personalize the learning for each kid. And you know what will happen? Not only will you personalize the learning, but you will know your students better. And the subtitle of our first book and the title of this presentation is reach every student in every class every day. Do you know why it's called that? It's called that because Aaron was able to talk to every student in every class every day. And I'm going to confess to you, for those first 19 years, sometimes kids would walk into my class, and I would be teaching them stuff at the chalkboard, at the overhead projector, at the PowerPoint. And I would have interaction with some students. But some students I did not talk to. They walked in, they were quiet, they took their notes, they were good kids. And they walked out the door, and I did not say one word to them. But in the flipped classroom, I talked to every student in every class, every day. If you're all interested in learning more about the work of Aaron and I, you can actually just go to flippedclass.com, or if you're even more interested, we've set up sort of an inquiry form on our website if you're all interested in checking out. And this is that website, which is, now we have free Wi-Fi. But flippedclass.com. So thank you very much.